Alright, in this video I'm going to show the Spartan character from the concept to several iterations to the finished mesh, and then a bit of the tool chain that I use to export the character from Maya into the level editor since I'm on Windows today. But it's the same process to get him into the iPhone, so there's no difference there. So first we'll start off with the concept, which I've shown earlier. So this is the final model, or should I say concept, that I send off to the modeler. And so with that you get a rough mesh, sort of also the texture layout, so we can have a look. And from this I asked for some revisions. For instance, the shoulder pads are much too big, and so are the hands. So if we go back, see they're a lot smaller and the hands aren't as big. So there you can see the texture layout. For the next model, we're going to revise this a little bit based on what we learned, but it's pretty good. It's around 1400 triangles, so that's well within the polygon budget that I allowed. And this is the first version of the texture. It's fairly rough, but just to get an idea of the colors, I wrote a fairly lengthy email asking for some changes so that I could get the look right, or at least the look that I wanted. And there, he's coming along. There's some things that were changed. For instance, I wanted the leg armor to wrap around to the back of his legs. I wanted more, how could I say, sort of like a shinier or like a glowier color tone to the character, and I wanted smooth, sort of smooth texturing. For instance, I didn't want to see these little gradations. I wanted something that flowed nicely and smoothly, and that, you know, the colors were upbeat. After all, this isn't a jury FPS, so I wanted some nice colors. I also wanted this changed. The tunic, it's too dark for the type of game that I'm doing. So that was the second email that I sent. And so here, based on that, we're trying different lighting solutions. Unfortunately, the lighting solutions, like, you can't tell much of a difference. So I finally said just pick one because they're pretty much all the same. But you can see the difference. I had the shoes raised up, so he has more like booties. I also had the back of the leg armor raised up because it looks nicer. So he's coming along. Definitely I like the colors, nice and bright, because after all, this isn't Gears of War. The armor's a little bit more glowy. And here we're doing, the eyes. The character, when he's in the character select screen, he'll have his eyes animating, and also, you know, he'll blink. So here we're looking at the texture. And what I'm going to do is here you can see the eye mesh. So what I do is, in a shader, I scroll the UVs. So that'll give the idea that his eyelids or his eyes are moving. So it's a quick and easy way to do eye animation without having to skin the eyes. And here you can see the closed eye texture. That's just a separate mesh, as you can see it here. So what I do is I just shut off the open eye mesh and replace it with the closed eye mesh. Very simple to do. And then you get really cheap, quick and efficient animation. And I think he's also worked on smoothing out the skin tone a little bit more, because that's one thing that I'm going for. I want nice, smooth texture variation. I don't want to see any sort of gradients. And he worked a little bit more on the ambient occlusion, which is also baked into the diffuse texture that you're seeing here. Although this is only a portion of the diffuse texture. So moving right along. I don't know what he did here, but I have this picture. Here we're analyzing like the form. There's some things that could have been fixed. So probably for the next model. One other thing that we did is he had a sort of a droopy appearance, like he sort of got out of bed. So you can see it there. With his eyelid, he's kind of droopy. So you could say he got a facelift, so his eyes aren't as droopy and he's a little bit more lively. Of course, he'll come to life with the animation and the eye blinking. Like right now, he's very static, so he's kind of lifeless, but that'll come in time once I've rigged the character up and I have him animating on the iPhone. But again, here we're trying to make sure the curves are okay. More or less, you know, he's coming along. And this is the final version. So this one I'm pretty happy with. I don't think I would change anything else. He's got some nicer curves than when he started. So I'll just go back to the beginning. So that was the concept that we started with. And then he just progressed from the rough mesh to the rough texture, and then just iterating until we get the look that we're looking for. He's pretty much close to finish. There's only a few minor tweaks to do. And then that's the final character. And now I'll show him in Maya. Let me find that. I think it's preloaded. Yeah, it is. No, that's for later. Yeah, here he is. So here's the plugin. But here you can actually see the mesh in Maya. Looks pretty much just like the screenshots I just showed. I'll highlight them so you can look at the triangles. So that's pretty much how the mesh is laid out. Fairly efficient. And then from this, I'll do a little turnaround. What I have is an exporter that I've written in C++, which that's what's great about Maya and these tools. You can write a plugin that patches into Maya and then do whatever you want, whatever custom format or parameters that you want to set for export. So if I want ASCII mode or the binary version, I can have it selected or let the artist do it. For instance, here's a good one for vertex cache optimization. When you export this mesh right here, what I'll do is I'll run through the meshes and rearrange the indices for all the triangles so that they're contiguously allocated in the cache. So that should speed up vertex processing on the GPU, or at least that's the plan. It probably won't be noticeable, but at the same time, it won't hurt. So then you can see the leather straps also. I have the ability, the artist, he made the meshes separate. So if we go over here into the little, so you can see he's got all the meshes are separate. Now, what I do, I allow him to do that. So I give them maximum flexibility. If that's what he wants to do, that's great. But of course, that's going to increase the draw calls on the iPhone. So I have an option where I can weld meshes. It's pretty simple. You have to select them always and you give them a mesh group name. But if I were to select this, you can see the weld mesh group is Spartan. And this is Spartan. Spartan. So what that'll do is it'll take all the meshes that belong to that mesh group and it'll weld them all together. So when I export, I should only have one mesh. And that's great. That gives the artist the flexibility they want, and that gives me the speed ups that I need because it's better if I have everything in one mesh. And it preserves the sort of layout that the artist had for the mesh in his Maya scene, and I don't mess with anything that he does. So according to him, everything's hunky-dory and nothing's been changed. So if I wanted to export, it's pretty simple. Just hit export. Over here you'll get whether it succeeded or not. And of course, if there's an error also in the output window, it'll tell you what happened and what you can do to fix it. So right now I exported in ASCII, so it's asking me to reload it. So here it is. It's just a ASCII file with all the data for that mesh. And as you can see, there's only one mesh because I welded everything together. And that's the best thing because it keeps the draw calls down. And let's see. So this is just for debug purposes. This isn't what I obviously ship to load into the iPhone. That's a custom binary format that's optimized for the iPhone. And it's only for the iPhone. So I figured, what could I do next? Let's load him up into the editor, because I wanted to show how flexible the editor is. I pretty much am able to load the character up, as you can see here. So there he is, just like in the Maya. You can obviously select them. And I was able to put this guy in. It's very simple because the tool is data driven. So you just create an asset resource file, point it to the meshes that are exported, and then the editor will take care of the rest. For instance, here's the assets. So there you can see them. And again, the tool will just go through the assets that you have, render it into a render target, and then you'll be able to display the assets that you can put in the world. This is just for testing, obviously. You're not going to put this. This is more for building the level. And that's a horrific, programmer. This is actually good to see. You can see the difference between programmer art and a professional artist. It's a world of difference. This is horrible, a travesty, and this is actually someone who knows what they're doing. So it's a nice contrast. But at least I can see that the tool chain is pretty much working from what the artist is doing to getting something into the editor. And it's just a little short step to get into the iPhone. I guess I can show the meshes wireframe. Yeah, there he is. So it's pretty much the same as what you saw in Maya. So if I set that back to solid, here we go. So probably the next thing is I'm going to have another character made in the same proportions based on the concept I showed before. And what I'm trying to do here, why am I doing another character, is all characters will be bound to the same skeleton rig, and that's one of the tricks of the trade, I guess we could call. Because if they share the same skeleton rig, that means they can both share the same animation sets. So that cuts down on memory use on the iPhone, and also obviously it makes it cheaper to do the animations since all the characters can draw from the same set of animations. So that's why I'm going to have another character, and then I'll integrate him on the iPhone, and then you'll see him animating and blinking his eyes, and also I'll have the real-time shadows up and running on the iPhone, and let's see how that looks. So till next time, that's probably what I'll do. I'll obviously show the character in just like I've shown him here, and then we'll go on into the iPhone, having him run through the entire engine and animating. Maybe I'll talk about the multi-threaded CPU skinning that I've done, but that'll be when I have the character running, and then obviously I'll start adding the entity components to have the player controller, and we'll move on from there. So till next time, that's all I have to show. Bye.